Welcome everyone to Startup Shuk. We are joined today with Tali Gross. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for hosting me.
Thank you. I was interested in Dono because this is one of my least understood subject. Like I want to know like the housing industry, how is it like, and also a little bit of finance. So I want to know like with my guest new industries. Usually I bring people from tech, but now we can bring people from other fields and learn about it.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's fascinating and it's amazing. Like I love history. And in the Dono story, I always feel like history is like super inspiring because there's like some things in our current life that actually didn't change for like 100 years ago. And suddenly what we are doing, it's crazy. Like we figure out that there's like the real estate registration system in the United States of America didn't change for like 500 years. And it still affects everyone in the market today. So we think that everything is like modern and shiny and looks good, but lots of infrastructures are just ancient.
Right.
And it's amazing. I love it.
We'll make a deep dive into that, and I think it's a very important thing to start tackling those industries because they will exist for a long, long time. Housing, everybody needs a house 500 years from now. You know, we're not gonna stay outside.
I agree with you.
So tell us a bit about yourself, your childhood, and we want to know what Tali Gross is.
Okay, so thank you again. So let's talk about like me as an entrepreneur, I guess as a kid, I always loved to create things and doing businesses and so on. And I remember myself since like elementary school trying and doing and failing constantly. So that's like my life. Business, non-profit organizations, like tried and made like many things. And my official journey started when I learned law in Tel Aviv University.
Oh.
And when I joined, started my studies, I had a business. It was a very interesting business. It was like squeezed juices that were like distributed on a weekly basis to people directly to their houses. And it was like a very big business.
A D2C juice.
Exactly. That we had like a huge factory that was like producing a very special juice for us, like super premium. And we delivered it directly to our clients. And we built kind of like a franchisee model. And we had like, it was like more than like 80 employees in like certain period of time. Yeah, it really went well.
Can I ask how old were you back then when you started this?
It's a great question. I think we're like 23, 24, something like that.
First years of university, second year?
Yeah, first year. So I joined university with this business. So I finished my military service.
Yeah.
And then I figured out that I need money to live.
Right.
And then I started the business and then I joined like university. It was like a year before like I started my studies. And I joined and started to learn law. And I never wanted to be a lawyer. It was like never something that I thought I'm going to do. And once I started my studies, I figured out how much I don't want to be a lawyer. And I started really seriously to ask myself, okay, so what's the next step? Where I'm planning to head? And I always like loved like finance and so on. So I figured out like working in finance could be like a super interesting thing, like VCs, private equity, and so on. Yeah. And I told myself, okay, I don't have the background, but I think I'm smart, I'm passionate, no doubt, and I don't need money because I have this business that is making enough money for me at that stage of life. So I started to email hundreds of investors. Listen, I want to work with you. It's kind of like take me for internship.
Yeah.
And of course, like 99% of the people never even answered. The 1% that answered was like, listen, we don't have anything to do with you. It's like a weird creature. We don't need this type of like guys. And then somebody called me to his office, told me, listen, we don't need employees. We don't need internships and so on. We're not thinking about it, but come to our office for a coffee. Let's talk about like life, give you some advices and so on. And it was a very good conversation. It was scheduled for like 30 minutes and it was like more 4 hours eventually. It was like a really interesting conversation. And then that conversation told me, listen, come here. We want you. We can do great things together. And I joined then Catalyst. It's a private equity. I worked directly with the CEO there. So it was like a few years. I have been there a few years, led a few very interesting things. And then COVID started. I decided that it's like time to move on and move to a Canadian company, Constellation Software, that is buying vertical software companies. And I was part of their M&A activities here in Israel and a bit in Europe. It was a very interesting period of time, like learning about businesses, how to evaluate them, how to buy them. So I think I led 2 deals about like software companies here in Israel that got acquired by us. So it was like a very interesting period of time. And then after almost like 2 years there, I figured out that it's time to start something on my own, like all in, do something big. And that's how I started my startup journey in some way, more than 2 years ago. When I had a very deep passion for the problem of seniors that are getting in retirement and they have houses, that's their biggest asset, and they don't have money because their pensions is not enough, especially we focused on the States. There's like no pensions account. Like they have the 401k that it's like approximately zero. That's like the balance that they have when they're getting in retirement. And the majority of them, they have houses. And there is the reverse mortgage that it's an interesting product, but very bad, because it doesn't suit their needs. And we decided to build a new financial instrument that will serve seniors in their retirement years, providing them a new way to liquidate their home equity in a much more flexible and affordable way. So basically they got a debit card from us with a monthly a maximum amount that they can withdraw on a monthly basis, and they can use as much as they want, and we will charge them only for what they actually used. And then it's something that actually suit their needs. It was very interesting. And we wanted to know how to originate our product in less than 20 minutes. And a very small item on that to-do list on the origination process was verifying ownership on the properties that we're going to liquidate. And very quickly we figure out that we cannot verify ownership on properties because, and we will talk in a minute about it more, but it will take you around 20 days, super manual work, and extremely expensive, like hundreds of dollars to verify ownership on properties in the States. And then we started to solve it ourselves. We very quickly and by mistake started to gain traction for the product. And a bit around like a year ago, we decided to pivot it from 65 to Dono, and that's what we're doing today.
I have lots of questions regarding
Go for it.
Dono, obviously. And I'm very interested in companies which solve overlooked problems. You see most people here these days, they like AI, something buzzy, crypto. People just ride the trends of waves and then they die out and then they sell. It's like a factory, just mass producing startups that die in 5 years. But I'm very interested in companies which solves overlooked problems, boring problems, things that people don't want to work on, but it's actually crucial to society.
It's crucial.
And YC actually recommends that please, young people, tackle these type of things. Talk to your dad who have a friend in like a factory, see what, software they're still using is probably for 1994. Try to renew that. So there's a lot of things that we can, but can we talk a bit about your first company, the juice company, and hear about the story, how you got into it, how long you worked on it? What's the name, by the way?
The name was Tene. So I figured out that I want to go and learn in university. I figured out that I need money to live. I was married then, and still today, but I got married then. And then I started to think, okay, how I'm going to fund myself. Right. And a friend told me about this interesting opportunity. It was like juices that were produced, premium, build your own like line of clients, set distribution on a weekly basis, like Thursday night, and can make like nice money from that. So I started by doing it by myself, really, like myself, started to promote myself and do sales and marketing to families that they will buy orange juice every week. And then I saw the potential in it. I thought it's a very interesting model, and I decided to establish my company with a very good friend and partner. And it was like kind of like the same concept. We like signed a contract with a very good factory. They produced for us the juices. We built this franchisee model, so they will distribute the products like directly to consumer. We provided them like the platform, the juices, all of the back office that they need. And yeah, it worked really well. until things were like not so well. And then I decided to sell my part there to my partner and to continue.
Was it during COVID and things start to decline? Or?
Actually, COVID was an amazing opportunity because everybody was like super excited about like a farm to table. So it was like a very good time because people didn't want to go out of house to buy, and it was directly to their houses, and everything was like super like, everybody was super like kind of like emotional about things, and it worked really well. And after COVID, I figured out it takes too much time. I don't see a huge... I can make living from that. It can be a great lifestyle business, but I want more than that, honestly.
Yeah, I would guess someone like you would want to aspire to build something more than a juicing company.
Exactly. So. It was like amazing experience. I lived from that for like few years, so no complaints, but it was like time to move forward.
Amazing. And Dono, you want to tell us a bit about the name, the background, the history?
Okay, so what's the problem that Dono is solving? When we started SixtyFive, I needed to verify ownership, and we figured out that we cannot do it. We got this like, oh my God, what's going on? We're like completely shocked because you're talking about like the most advanced economy in the world. You're thinking everything is working good. It's not like, it's not Israel that if something will be broken, I will not be surprised. I was like, we were like completely shocked. And we got this like understanding in a minute in some way that in the US, like we don't have a real estate registration system for properties. We just don't have it. The way the system is working today in the States, it's work kind of like on an archive base. So there is like archives that are poorly and partly managed on a super local basis. So, and most of the time it's like on a county level basis. Wow. Okay, we have more than like around like 3,200 counties in the States. Every county is working in a different way and so on. And every time that you need to check or you want to verify ownership or so on, you need to go to the county, you need to manually collect all of like the right records, the right papers from this archive. Hopefully you will not miss anything because the county is not really indexing those records. They are tagging them on a name basis, and they will probably make a mistake once they're typing the name on the record. So hopefully you will collect all of the right ones, and then you need to read each and every document, each and every record, and you need to go back 40 years ago, and you need to every time to build a story to understand the relationship between all of the documents. And it's crazy, and it takes today, can be days to weeks. It's extremely inaccurate, like mistakes happens all the time because they're missing documents or they misunderstood the document and so on, and it's extremely complicated and it's very expensive. Like it costs like a few hundreds of dollars to check ownership. And we told ourselves, it's crazy because
just to check
ownership, and it's such a basic thing that, think about it, almost like every business in the financial ecosystem is affected by the question of ownership on properties. Because it's like the biggest asset class in the world eventually, like trillions of dollars. I think it's like $7 trillion or so, it doesn't really matter. And every financial institute is affected by that. Any kind of lender, all of the mortgage industry, homeowner insurance, there's like so many industries in the financial ecosystem that are affected by the question of ownership. And today they don't have a seamless way to check it.
Do you think it's by design because people want to keep certain practices running?
I think it's a combination of three factors, I guess. First, there is some associations that want to keep it. They make a fortune, like billions of dollars on an annual basis from that. The second is the fact that it's a very hard to change system. Think about it. If you want to change the system, you need to gather all the information in a single time and then restructure it. And it's like an extremely complicated thing that I think couldn't be done before the AI generation. Let's think about it in this way. And the third part that, like, for example, in Israel, the government is responsible. In Israel, you can get into like the registration system and get like an instant answer, and the government is backing in some way the system. So if there is the mistake, you can potentially sue the government that made the mistake. So if we want to have the same thing in the States, the United States will need to take responsibility on the ownership of properties. And that's a huge liability that nobody will ever take.
Very
Does that
interesting.
make sense?
Very, very, very interesting. So how do you plan to solve that?
Okay.
I would guess can you like start from one county at a time and like try to...
No, so we solve it. We're already in the market, serving big clients, and we're like in a very good momentum. We built three things that the main thing is kind of like think about it as a decision engine. We are getting the address of the property that you want to get the answer about it. We know instantly how to understand what is the data that we need to collect on this property to actually build a story of the property. And then we built a massive infrastructure that knows how to collect all of the records from those super local databases. And that's like a side challenge that those local databases are extremely fragmented. Like every county has a different structure, a different format, everything is different, like no similarity between county to county. And when we're thinking about it on a county level, there is like between 4 to 6 different databases that you need to collect the records from them, the data from them, to have like the full picture, the full understanding about like what's actually going on there. So it's like a crazy challenge there. So we are getting the records into our system. And then, as we discussed, they're not indexed. So we need to extract the data from those records. And that's another big challenge because on the records, so we have a list of like around 200 types of record. When every record looks different, like the same type of record will not have there's like no unified format. So for example, I have a deed and you have a deed, that's like the ownership certificate or some way. It will not have any similarity, not by language, not by the structure of the document and so on. And they have the same legal purpose, and we need to understand that what's going on in this document. So we developed a very unique and robust extraction capabilities so we can index.
And generalize this and put it into the system.
And formalize it and put it in our system.
But won't there be missing data? Say deed 1 have this information, deed 2 does not. How do you do it?
Perfect. So the most challenging part, so we are gathering all the information back into the system. And then we have the decision engine that is looking into the data that we found and figure out that there's like missing parts. And that's the challenge part because it's kind of like, and eventually it's like kind of like a feedback loop. We're collecting the record, we are extracting and analyzing it. We figure out what else is missing to provide you the full answer, and then we're doing like recollecting, re-extracting, and so on and so on. And that's a real challenge because I will give you a crazy story that happened like a few days ago. On the records, the official records, we have this John Smith that he was the owner of the house, but this John Smith passed away 7 years ago. Okay, so now we gather the records. We understood that he passed away 7 years ago. So now we need to recalculate the ownership structure in some way because at the last 7 years, the real owner of the house is the son. Does that make sense?
Well, John Smith is passed away.
He's passed away, so he's no. So if we have a lien or a mortgage, it will be on the son's name and not on the father that passed away. And that's a challenging part to really have this instant answers in a very robust way.
And previously, before your system, the son would technically be, de facto running, having the deed, but it wouldn't be indexed. No one would know that.
Nobody would know that. And once you will do the manual search, hopefully you will figure it out and not miss it.
Okay. Wow. And how?
Because he inherited the house 7 years ago, he just didn't update the county. And it's okay, it must need to update the county. But he is officially the owner of the house in the last 7 years.
How does this process work of changing ownership, updating data? Do people go voluntarily? Do governments require? Do you actively seek out new data?
Most of the ownership transfer are like a transaction, and I'm selling my house, and then there's like a deed that is getting signed. But many people, in many cases, are not doing it properly, and they have mistakes and so on. And you need to figure out that there's a problem here and dig deeper in some way.
If I still have a question on the different data that each deed contains. If, say, there is a deal, you mentioned that land ownership affects everything, obviously, because we are on Earth. So if a certain transaction or business requires certain information from a deed, but then the other party with another deed with a different format doesn't have that data, will you try to generalize that, try to balance it out? So if this data is missing from deed A, then they have to fill it out, and deed B doesn't have this kind of data and they have to fill it out.
It's always cross-referencing because every record looks different, and we have on every property few data points, few identifiers, so you need to connect between a record and the property based on the data that you have, and it's always a challenge, and you always need to understand what do you have, what you don't have, why do you don't have those data points, so it's like an ongoing challenge.
And you said it's already operational in America, so how big are you guys in the United States?
So we launched our product in June, so we're almost like 4 months ago. Signed a few enterprise contracts in some way, significant deals, and we're like in a great momentum from like a business perspective.
Are you working with the companies or the government that manages the data?
So we are working, our audience is every business that the question of ownership affects their way of doing business. So any type of lender, mortgage company, bank, and so on. When now we are mostly focusing on the industry that is today doing most of the searches, and that's the title industry. Because there is such a problem in the US with the systems.
The title industry?
Yes. Okay, so what's title?
Okay.
When you're buying a house, you will order this search that will check ownership on the property. And then they will get back to you with the report that Tali is the owner and he can sell the house to you. But they will tell you, listen, we may have a mistake in the report because something happened and you are just paying me $1 million for the house and you don't want to pay $1 million for nothing. So they are coming and telling me, listen, we will give you kind of like an insurance that is ensuring that Tali is actually the owner of the house and he is eligible to sell the house to anybody and in this transaction to you. So that's the purpose of the title industry. And they are kind of like, think about it, the gatekeepers today about like ownership data and public records.
So they make the money using this old system that you mentioned.
Exactly. And we're working with them because they make most of their money from the insurance premiums. And we help them to process the data and think about it in this way.
I see.
Because when they're doing underwriting, they are relying on the data that is in the records, and they need to process and extract data from the records. So we help them with that.
How do you generalize this different deeds? Do you have an algorithm? Do you have an AI?
Yeah, many algorithms and proprietary LLM models and so on that we develop to actually formalize all of the system.
Tell me a bit about the founding of Dono. That's also what we like to talk about.
The funding team?
Founding. Like, how did you guys came together? Are you technical? Do you?
No, I'm not. Okay, so I have two amazing co-founders, Ron and Eyal. Ron is my CTO and Eyal is my COO. I know Eyal for many years, like since university. 7 years ago, I guess, something like that. We met in university. We always dreamed to do something together. In the university, we mostly ate McDonald's together and talked about nothing. But then we decided like to team up and do something together. Ron, we met him through a program, kind of like a fellowship for entrepreneurs. I have a blackout. So we met him there. Kind of like we dated him for a few weeks. And we decided to team up. And like for the last almost like 3 years, we're together. Yeah.
How do you decide to work with people? I mean, obviously with people who you already know, you might as well work with something with them. But with someone new, how do you decide to like work with them? Hey, this guy's cool. I want to work with him. How do you know that guy's the right person to work with?
It's a great question, and I'm asking it myself a few times a day, at least. My honest answer is that I'm really looking for personal connection. I think it's extremely important about above their wisdom and so on that is crucial for success, I want to feel comfortable with them, to have a conversation, to criticize them, that they will criticize me, because I want another team member around the table to brainstorm with them, and I want to feel comfortable, have a good discussion with them, and that's the main thing. Hard to measure mathematically, I guess, but that's like the thing that I'm looking after. Also, investors, advisors, employees, partners, it's relevant to everybody. I want to feel comfortable to have a conversation with them.
How big is your team? Is it mostly in United States? You have people in Israel?
So we're now 13, 8 here in Israel. We have an office in Tel Aviv, R&D, and the other team is like sales, marketing, operation. They're in the States.
Got it. All right. So with Dono, where do you see it going in the next 5 years? Now with the advent of AI, it evolves, it affects everything. How do you see it affecting your company?
We are built because of the existing of AI. Without that, it's like a huge data challenge that I think it will be very hard to solve.
But aren't you concerned with security if you're feeding data, public data records into LLMs?
It's public records. We're working with records that are by definition public, so we don't have any like privacy issues here. In a few years, we see ourselves as kind of like creating this missing infrastructure to their financial system, because today they don't have a real estate registration system. We are going to create a system that you can ask every question about everything in the real estate market on the data side, and we will provide the answers for that.
Very interesting. Talk a bit about your process in trying to figure out how to solve the problem. Obviously, when you encounter a problem, it's clear that it's a very big deal. What was the MVP? Like, what was your first step in, okay, let me start solving this, but how do you solve it? I mean, it is connecting with a lot of people, it affects everything, and the deed, it's not yours. How exactly do you start solving the problem? What was the first step?
So we started to solve it to ourselves. That's how we started in SixtyFive. Started to solving it to ourselves in certain geographies in a very bad way. And because we told ourselves, okay, we're willing to take like high risk, or like we're good taking risks about like the properties that we're going to liquidate, because it's like small amount and so on. And that's how we started, then learning what are we, and then it's kind of like a very long learning curve that we're still in it.
Could you elaborate a bit about how exactly you solve the problem, the technicalities of it?
Oh, again, I'm not a tech guy, but
not the machines,
really,
but like
no. So it's the data was there. We just need to understand how to process it, how to collect the records, how to understand how do you build the story of the records, how every record is affecting other records. So lots of conversations, lots of reading, and lots of mistakes also.
Got it. What was your notch in the belt with Dono? What was your proudest accomplishment so far?
I think we launched like 4 months ago. We just passed like a very significant deal from like an ARR perspective, and I was like super proud that we accomplished it in a very short time, and we see a very good future. So yeah, that
4 months is very short, and it's quite impressive. What was in your journey as an entrepreneur? Which point in your journey taught you the most lessons? Obviously, you founded many things before Dono.
It's a good question. What taught me most?
A lot of Israeli founders, for example, they could relate a lot of their entrepreneurial abilities from the military. They learned a lot, how to be responsible, how to be managing a team.
So not sure where I learned it, but my main learning is that like there is like in some way no bypasses. You need to work hard all of the time. Just really, it's not like if you will get this and that, everything will be amazing and easy. Nothing is easy. You will always need to continue to work hard. And that's my main lesson. I can give you endless of examples in my life, but it's always like hard work. That's my main.
What would you advise younger entrepreneurs if they would want to pursue this path of entrepreneurship?
To work hard. There's like really no path. Like start working, identify what's stopping you. Do you need a partner? Do Do you need a problem? Do you need clients? And really start working. There's like really that's the only thing. Just get out of bed, get out of like the room that you have your thoughts that are amazing. Just start fucking working. And you will make endless mistakes, but if you're not working, you're not making mistakes.
A lot of people are currently in university when they're building their company. What is your opinions on formal education? A lot of people found their teammates just like you did, co-founders from university. But all else, what do you think?
I'm not a big fan of university, but it's super personal. Like some people love it and get inspired and learn, and some people are having a good time and less progressing themselves there. So it depends. I even didn't spend too much time there, honestly.
But did you finish the degree?
Yeah, I finished. I finished my degree quite successfully, I guess. Yeah, finished, studied, but it was like more studied before the exams, passed them, continue in life. I wasn't very in the university during my studies.
Amazing. So for people who would like to know more about Dono, where can they find you?
So at our website, it's dono.ai. On my LinkedIn page, I guess, it's Tali Gross. Email me, tali@dono.ai. Yeah, I think so.
Maybe one last thing, where do you see Dono in like 10 years?
The go-to data player, data platform for anybody in the market. Think about it and Applied. Like today, everybody that wants to do anything in the financial market is connecting to Applied, because Applied's kind of like the API. Everything is going through them. They organized in some way the financial system on the financial aspects. So we're going to be the Applied of like the real estate market.
Amazing. Man, I'm excited and can't wait to see more from Dono.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, man.